So the sun's out, the weather's warming up, and our absolute first instinct is usually to grab the leash and take our dogs outside, right? We want to get out there and enjoy the sunshine. But here's the thing you need to know. What feels like just a beautifully warm day to us can silently and very quickly turn into a fatal emergency for our pets. Today, we're talking about canine heat stroke, and I need to be totally clear right up front. This isn't just about your dog feeling a little uncomfortably warm. We're talking about a total, life-threatening failure of their biological cooling system. When a dog's internal temperature crosses 105 degrees Fahrenheit, that's about 40.5 degrees Celsius, they cross a terrifying biological threshold. At that point, the proteins in their body literally begin to melt. It causes irreversible cell death, severe organ damage, and if it isn't caught in time, it's fatal. It happens so much faster than most of us realize. But the good news? It's entirely preventable.
To get us there, here is the quick roadmap for this explainer. We'll cover the canine cooling flaw, environmental heat traps, high-risk dogs, the stages of heat stroke, and finally, the exact emergency protocol you need to know.
All right, Section 1, the canine cooling flaw. Let's get into it.
Okay, let's really dive into this by looking at the fundamental difference between how you and I experience heat and how our dogs experience it. Because honestly, our human perception of temperature, it's incredibly misleading when we apply it to our pets. Look at a thick-coated dog like this husky. When we get hot, we have a massive surface area of skin covered in sweat glands that acts like a built-in AC unit. But dogs like this, they are wearing a permanent, highly insulated fur coat. They absolutely cannot rely on their skin to cool down. In fact, once the ambient temperature hits about 87.8 degrees Fahrenheit, any heat loss they were getting through their skin just completely stops. Zero. They are basically trapped inside their own body heat. And that perfectly illustrates the stark biological contrast between us and them. Human thermoregulation is super efficient in the heat. We sweat all over, it evaporates, and we cool down. Canine thermoregulation, though, it is evolutionarily designed to retain heat and help them endure cold climates, not for rapid cooling. Because they only have a few sweat glands on their paw pads, they rely almost entirely on panting. Panting moves air over the wet tissues of their mouth and nasal passages to create evaporative cooling. They also have this really fascinating vascular network called the carotid rete mirabile. It basically acts as a thermal shield, using cooler blood from the nose to cool down the warm arterial blood before it reaches the brain. It's a genius system, but it's very fragile, which brings us to our next point. Section 2. Hidden environmental heat traps. So, because of that biological flaw we just talked about, dogs are incredibly vulnerable to hidden environmental heat traps. These are invisible hazards that can totally overwhelm your dog's cooling system in just minutes. And I'm talking about on days that might not even feel dangerously hot to us. The absolute most important number you can remember before stepping outside with your dog is 150. It's known as the 150 rule, and working dog handlers and vets use this exact heuristic to instantly assess outdoor risk. It specifically factors in the invisible enemy of evaporative cooling, humidity. Now, this is where the math gets really interesting in the real world. To use the 150 rule, you literally just take the ambient temperature in Fahrenheit and add it to the relative humidity percentage. If that number hits 150 or higher, the risk of heat stroke during exercise is critical. So think about it. An 80-degree day sounds gorgeous, right? But if the humidity is sitting at 80%, that equals 160. Boom, you're instantly in the high dangerous risk category. Why? Because when the air is that saturated with moisture, the water on your dog's tongue simply cannot evaporate. Their whole panting mechanism is completely neutralized, and their internal temperature is going to skyrocket, even on a mildly warm day. Another huge hidden trap is surface thermodynamics. This is especially dangerous in urban settings where there's a ton of concrete and asphalt. The ambient air temperature might read a super comfortable 75 degrees Fahrenheit, but asphalt soaks up solar energy like a sponge, and it can easily reach 125 degrees Fahrenheit or more on that exact same day. That is literally hot enough to cause severe thermal burns to your dog's paw pads in just 60 seconds. And think about their anatomy. A dog's belly is so close to the ground, so that scorching concrete or asphalt acts like a giant radiator, reflecting intense infrared heat directly up into their core, forcing an already stressed cooling system into overdrive. So the key here is being proactive. You really have to manage their environment to avoid heat stroke altogether. First off, change up your walking schedule. Stick to the early morning before the sun bakes the pavement, or go late in the evening. Second, always prioritize shade. There is a massive temperature difference between full sun and deep shade, so find tree cover or even just use your own shadow to give your dog a break. Third, if you're out hiking, try to plan your routes near natural water.
Letting your dog safely wade or swim in streams, lakes, or rivers is quite literally one of the best ways to dissipate heat. And lastly, brush them. Regularly brushing thick-coated dogs removes that dead undercoat. If you leave it there, it just traps excess heat right against their skin. Section 3. Identifying high-risk dogs.
Now, while every single dog is susceptible to the heat, the danger definitely isn't distributed equally. Some dogs are biologically at a severe disadvantage. At the very top of that high-risk list, brachycephalic or flat-faced breeds. Think pugs, French bulldogs, boxers. Because of their squished airways, tiny nostrils, and long, soft palates, they physically just cannot move enough air to pant effectively. Statistically, flat-faced dogs are 146% more likely to suffer from heat stroke. Crazy, right? But it's not just them. Context matters for coat types, too. Dogs with long hair or thick double coats trap heat incredibly fast. Dark-colored fur absorbs way more solar radiation. Obese dogs carry extra layers of fat that literally insulate them, trapping core heat while demanding more energy just to move around. And finally, extremes in age. Young puppies and senior dogs simply have weaker, less efficient cooling systems overall.
Which brings us to a huge debate, the myth of shaving double-coated dogs. You'll hear people argue that a thick double coat actually regulates a dog's temperature in the summer. Look, a coat designed to survive the Arctic does not magically become an air conditioner in July. Thick fur definitely hinders the release of core heat. However, taking clippers and shaving them completely down to the skin isn't a magic fix either, because that exposes them to sunburn and other environmental hazards. The scientific consensus is clear. You have to remove the trapped heat. That means intense, regular brushing and proper summer grooming. Getting all that dense undercoat out is absolutely vital so that whatever little breeze there is can actually reach their skin.
Section 4. The stages of heat stroke.
Okay, we are at the most critical part of this whole explainer, recognizing the actual real-time progression of symptoms. Knowing these stages can literally be the difference between a quick recovery and a fatal tragedy. First, let's establish the numbers you should be monitoring. A healthy dog's normal core temperature sits between 99.5 and 102.5 degrees Fahrenheit. That's 37.5 to 39.2 degrees Celsius. When they hit 104 degrees Fahrenheit or 40 degrees Celsius, they have entered the extreme danger zone of heat stress. And once that temp crosses 105.8 degrees Fahrenheit or 41 degrees Celsius, true heat stroke has started. This is the threshold where proteins denature, the brain begins to swell, and systemic organ failure kicks off.
But, you probably won't have a thermometer handy on a walk, so you need to know the visual timeline. Stage 1 is heat stress. You're going to see really loud, excessive panting, and the dog will actively seek out shade or maybe even refuse to keep walking. If you ignore that, they move into the hyperdynamic phase. The body is frantically trying to dump heat. Their tongue will fully extend, and the tip will actually look flat and spade-shaped. Their gums will turn a dark, bright red, and you'll notice their saliva gets incredibly thick, sticky, and ropey because they are so dehydrated. Finally, they hit the decompensatory phase. The cooling system has completely crashed. They'll seem confused, wobbly, and unresponsive. They might collapse, have seizures, and you might even see bloody vomiting or diarrhea as the intestinal lining starts breaking down. It's terrifying.
Section 5. Emergency First Aid Protocol. If you ever spot those early warning signs, every single second matters. Here's exactly what you need to do to save your dog's life. First, let's clarify how to use water in a crisis. Your immediate priority is water application on their body, not water consumption. You want to apply cool water directly to the dog's neck, stomach, and inner thighs, because that's where the blood vessels are closest to the skin. Do not pour water over their face. They are already gasping for air. Now, you can offer them a drink, but never, ever force a heavily panting or disoriented dog to drink water. Their airway reflexes are shot, and forcing water can push it right into their lungs, causing a deadly condition called aspiration pneumonia. Let them drink on their own terms.
And that brings up a really crucial warning. Do not use ice cubes or ice-cold water to cool them down. I know it sounds totally counterintuitive, but if you apply freezing water to an overheating dog, it causes extreme vasoconstriction. That means the blood vessels right at the surface of the skin rapidly shrink and clamp shut. This actually traps that boiling heat deep inside their internal organs and can instantly send the dog into shock. Just stick to cool, regular room temperature water. So here is your science-backed 4-step emergency procedure. It's called Cool First, Transport Second. Step 1. Stop all activity immediately. Get them into the shade or an air-conditioned room. Step 2. Rapid cooling. If you have a cool stream or pool, get them in it.
Otherwise, continuously pour cool water over their neck, belly, and limbs. Step 3. Fan them. Air movement is key. Evaporation is their main cooling method, so moving air plus water works wonders. Step 4. Get them to an emergency vet in a pre-cooled, air-conditioned car. Oh, and one massive final note here. Stop active cooling once their temperature drops down to 103 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 39.4 degrees Celsius. If you keep cooling past that, they'll just keep dropping, and you risk throwing them into severe hypothermia.
Look, canine heat stroke is completely devastating, but with a little awareness, it is entirely preventable. So I want to leave you with this question. Are you prepared to protect your best friend the next time the temperatures rise? Please remember to check the humidity. Always test that concrete or asphalt with your bare hand in urban settings so you don't burn their paws. Understand the biological limits of their specific breed, whether they have short hair or a thick winter coat, and stay highly alert for those early warning signs when you're outside. Keeping them safe really just means respecting that their physical world is fundamentally different from ours. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and please stay safe out there.